Hi there, my name is Brian Bastian and I'm the head of product at Property Guardian. And today I'm excited to be able to share and demonstrate how we help our insurance stakeholders more effectively manage their wildfire exposed property books of business. We do market ourselves as the complete wildfire solution, and you'll certainly see that in the upcoming slides and demonstration. We support a variety of stakeholders from commercial E&S underwriting leaders, MGA and specialty program managers, as well as risk and loss control leaders. But at the end of the day, this comprehensive suite of solutions we've created are designed to do a few things. One, just help those stakeholders better understand where the wildfire risk truly exists. Two, which risks are ultimately acceptable. Three, act earlier when those conditions change. And lastly, preserve property, portfolios, and ultimately profitability, for the book of business. What makes us unique is our team of experts, and not just on the insurance side, but also our deep bench of former wildland firefighters and National Fire Protection Agency certified wildfire mitigation professionals in combination with our data science team. And it's sort of those three pieces coming together into one to develop a really comprehensive suite of solutions. We're not just addressing the issue around underwriting and risk selection, but we're tackling other areas around loss control and response as well. There are no black boxes with any of the solutions that we have. We want to ensure that our clients deeply understand, each of the elements that make their way into the various products that we've developed. And this is a key sort of value that we have in the way we partner, with our clients. We are not just a data vendor. We are a true extension of our partners and their teams. And we want you to treat us that way. Our comprehensive approach includes kind of three core areas that we tackle. Number one, and maybe one of the more important ones, is around wildfire risk assessment. Secondly, around mitigation insights. This was really our bread and butter and where we started a bulk of our kind of wildfire expertise being on the loss control mitigation side. And so you'll see a bit about this in a couple moments. And then lastly, and which is where we're going to be highlighting in our demonstration today, is how we're better informing stakeholders in active wildfire response and intelligence. But yeah, first we need to understand the risk and ultimately act on it. So just like a quick note or two on how we're ultimately measuring what matters with respect to wildfire risk. You're seeing in the video here on the right-hand side, I'm sort of quickly scrolling through the Cadillac of what we do, which is our wildfire risk insight report. We have a number of other more transactional, wildfire scores and products to both quantify the risk as well as the mitigation opportunity for a given property. Our values in this space are really revolving around providing deeper, understanding around the wildfire risk dynamics for a given property location, making sure that the underwriters have access to clear, defensible risk selection criteria, and lastly, this becomes sort of the key element to growing and balancing a profitable book of wildfire exposed property business. But the elephant in the room is, what do we do during an event? And I sort of alluded to this already. This is where we're going to be focused here in the demonstration on our active wildfire intelligence product, Property Guardian Overwatch. Some of the key challenges around wildfire, and I would hope this resonates with anyone who's ever had to manage a wildfire exposed property book, is wildfires are very noisy. When we get into peak season, we're going to be talking about hundreds of wildfires active at one time. And so monitoring can become quite noisy and time consuming. We work with a lot of clients today where the individual people are often wearing that hat in addition to many of the other hats that they have and constantly tracking. And it's information overload at times. Secondly, is that fires are fast moving and they're difficult to track. And so any individual fire, the underlying dynamics, what suppression or containment might be occurring, it's very difficult to be able to access this information in real time and to inform whatever that decision might be. And then lastly, a reactive response does increase loss severity. There are very simple just-in-time mitigation techniques that property owners can take, whether that's residential lines or commercial lines of business, to reduce the loss potential for the property. But the key is understanding what, if any, impact there might be, 1 or even 2 days in advance. That can mean a dramatic difference in the loss outcome for a given property risk that might be exposed inside the footprint. What we see in the space, these are some of the alternatives. Certainly for me personally, my background is on the reinsurance broking side, was responsible for building a lot of these catastrophe risk management platforms. And there are great systems out there that are really, really good for kind of strategic analysis, but lack in some of the feature and capability to truly action things. But then on the flip side, there are kind of I'll call generalized fire operation systems that are designed for dispatch, very tactically focused, which can often miss out on some of the important kind of strategic analysis type features and capability. And that's what we've designed Overwatch to really do, sort of live in that. We sort of define this as the decision bridge. This is truly a purpose-built wildfire intelligence platform for insurance teams that kind of see the value in more of the strategic components of what a typical cat risk management platform can do, but equally value some of the more tactical response related capability. And we want to bring that all into one package, and you'll see this, like I said, in our demonstration in just a moment. Lastly, we want to do the hard work for you. So behind the scenes here, we are continuously monitoring the impact to a portfolio based on active wildfire incident location data, heat detection on those fires, and a probabilistic 1 to 14 day spread forecast for all these fires. And then what we can do in conjunction with that, which we'll demonstrate, is how you can create a set of automated impact notifications so that you're notified when and where it actually matters. And lastly, we've added other important features and capability to make sure that this is something that you can use proactively in both decision making and, importantly, with property owner, broker, stakeholder, policyholder communications. So with that, let's dive into the demo. Welcome to the demo. So this is our Overwatch product, and the first thing that you'll see when you launch the application are all of those active fires. And this is a relatively quiet time of year, relatively speaking, here for wildfire, but you can see there are still 12 fires today. I'm recording this on February 18th, 2026. And one of the first questions that we want to be able to answer very quickly and directly is based on the forecast information. Like I said, behind the scenes here for all active fires, we have a 1 to 14 day spread forecast. That data is informed by real-time detection of heat on these fires that initialize these models and produce these different outputs, which I'll show you. Based on those outputs, we want to know not just based on the current footprint, but as we move this multiple days sort of out in advance, let's say we can go all the way out to 14 days, do any of the forecasts for these fires intersect with my underlying portfolio data? So behind the scenes here, we do have a portfolio loaded, and we're doing all of that calculation work behind the scenes so that you can interact with the product in real time and get the answers that you're looking for. And I can see here that there's this one fire in Texas, the Lavender Fire, that I've got 3 risks and close to $40 million in total insured value that's exposed. So now I can actually zoom in right to that particular fire. And it's going to provide for me that 14-day spread forecast. But I can see and I can adjust this. Let's go back to the 4-day. This is at the 90th percentile predicted fire size, right? That at 4 days, that's when I actually see the first kind of properties being exposed, right, for this particular fire. And I might want to view not just the property locations, right, but I also may want to be able to see a list here and ultimately export all of those data out. On top of this, there could be other sort of pockets of exposure that I'm concerned about. So I can, come in and make a quick selection, say, hey, I also am kind of worried about these that are sort of near the fire. You can get a list of those again and export those very quickly from the system. And if there's a kind of third-party exposure management tool that you're actually doing financial loss calculations for, this entire kind of red forecast footprint can be easily exported out to a shapefile and loaded right into that system for doing those types of financial calculations. But the reality is you don't want to be having to do all of this manually. So the real magic is behind the scenes. We can do all of this hard work for you and just alert you when it's necessary. So to do this, I will highlight here the impact notifications feature. There are 2 types. One is when we initially detect a fire, but it's still pending a forecast. If you have any exposure in the portfolio within X distance from the fire, you can get a notification. The more interesting one, though, and the more powerful one are the forecast notifications. So to set these up, I simply create a new notification. I can, give it a name, right? And I can set a priority level for it, give it a description, and then I can define, hey, for all active fires, I'm really concerned about their 5-day spread forecast at, let's say, the medium predicted fire size. And let's do another kind of within 1 mile of those forecasted fires. That's when I'd like to be notified. You can also include any additional criteria for that notification. And we see this getting used by geography. So that could be state, it could be a specific line of business or a business division or segment, right? It could be by construction or occupancy or really any other attribute that you have, right? Let's say I just want to get these notifications if it's my general commercial line that I'm concerned about. We can go ahead and hit next. You kind of choose like who you want to have receive the notifications. I'll just go and hit next. You do a final summary and you create that notification. That's it. You can set and forget, and basically the system will work for you. That way, when there is any net new fire in this case, and there's a 5-day spread forecast for that, and that's impacting the portfolio, in this case, just the general commercial, you'll get that email notification. You can export, right, the potentially impacted insured location data directly from that email, or you can come into the system like you saw here and do that sort of traditional analysis. And with that, on behalf of the Property Guardian team, I just wanted to say thank you for listening to our presentation, and hopefully you enjoyed the demonstration as well. You can always check us out, some of the solutions that we have at www.propertyguardian.com. Hopefully there are a few things that piqued your interest. We'd love to have a conversation with you. So as a next step, please do not hesitate to reach out to either myself or someone else on the Property Guardian team. Thank you. Hi there. Now for the Q&A. So the first question that we often get is, how are the wildfire risk assessment solutions we have different from other traditional hazard scores in the market? It sort of depends. For our resiliency score, we capture the vulnerability components directly. So things like the structure and the parcel, those are critical elements in understanding the overall risk for the property. You wouldn't typically see those in a traditional hazard score. So those are sort of the main things for resiliency. For our recurrence risk insights, there's a time element of this. So we often see how this can be combined with or bolted onto a traditional hazard score to not just help you understand the general hazard risk, but when you might expect that next fire at that particular property location. And then lastly, with our reports, these include a dynamic simulation of conditional wildfire around the property, and it actually calculates the probability of a fire actually reaching the structure in an 8-hour period. So this is like fundamentally different from a traditional hazard score, because we're actually helping you understand conditionally, under worst case wildfire weather conditions, could a fire reach the property or not? So the second question we often get is, for Overwatch, how do we know that this is any better than using public wildfire data? The reality is that public wildfire information is notoriously lagging what's typically going on the ground. And this could be up to 24, even 48 hours, right, for the event. So if you're relying on that for your kind of current information around the fire, let alone directionally where that fire is moving, public available data isn't necessarily going to provide that information for you. It also doesn't explicitly include a forecast. So that public data is not going to say, with any type of precision, how that fire is going to behave and where it's moving, making it a much more challenging source for the type of decision making that you'd want to do, and what Overwatch has been optimized to support for you. All right, third question. Also for Overwatch, how easy is it to get the portfolio data loaded and ultimately personalized? Every client that we work with has a slightly different use case. The portfolio data is key, right? The value from the system is only going to be as good as the quality of the data and the frequency at which you're able to get the latest in-force view of your book into the system, which is why we make this very, very simple. You can upload, or we can help you upload your portfolio data as often and as frequently as you'd like, and you can customize a lot of the data fields within the portfolio information to suit your needs. That includes up to 10 additional attribute and metric fields. And then lastly, wow, there's so much here. Like, where do I even start? The reality is, we just want to have a conversation with you. What's your biggest pain point? Are you looking to grow? Are you looking to make your existing book of business, more resilient, more hardened for wildfire? What kind of business are you actually writing? We'd have a number of different questions for you. And then ultimately, if you connect with us and we can better learn and understand where your needs are, we can advise on the right solution for you.